Star Trek: The Next Generation was a show.
Star Trek: The Next Generation
everybody
was
I interacted
a
with
show that I started watching when I was a really little kid. Can you believe it's been 30 years? Star Trek: The Next Generation first.
Star Trek: The Next Generation was my life as a kid. It was the escape from reality.
Welcome to Next Generation's First Generation, where Patrick Delmore and Sascha Schaudies take a look back into their favorite childhood show, Star Trek: The Next Generation. This is where we attempt to reconcile how we felt as children watching the show and looking back as old farts now in our late 30s, almost 40s.
Alright, well, let's shut up.
Please put that in the episode.
That's what it sounds like when Optimus Prime farts. Hey, Starscream!
What?
Pull my finger!
Alright, let's redo this sound check.
Hello and welcome back to that magical year of 1990 and our coverage of that season, the third of Star Trek: The Next Generation, here on Next Generation's First Generation. We've got a full house again today. There's me, Patrick Delmore. To my right is Matt.
Hello.
To my left is our regular co-host, Mr. Sascha Schaudies.
Hey there.
And for her triumphant return to the 24th century, or the 20th, depending upon how you look at it, is Jem.
Ta-da!
Yay!
And today we are watching one of the less good episodes of Next Generation, A Matter of Perspective.
Well, I don't know. I would say that depends on who's watching it, if it's good or not.
Would you say it's a matter of perspective?
Oh, yes.
Oh.
Okay. So, cue up your DVD and your viewing device, and we'll give you the countdown. Ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
And we open on a painting class in what looks like 10 forward, but probably isn't. It's probably the set.
I like seeing ship goings on.
Yeah, it's really cool.
This is a new thing that they kind of introduce as the series matures. I think it's one of the first times where they've done this. I believe they're on the set of the observation lounge where they hold most of their meetings. There's Data.
Data's like, okay, naked girl.
Yep.
Don't look at the naked girl, whatever you do.
Captain, we have arrived at Tower 4. The awaiting is completed.
So they've arrived somewhere? Oh, they're gonna go investigate a lab, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, well, Riker and Geordi are there, and they're picking them up. Or actually, Riker's there, Geordi's back on the ship.
Yeah, so any other time, they would just call them on the intercom like they do for everything, up to and including attacks on the ship. But for some reason, they felt they needed to send Data all the way from the bridge down here.
Yeah.
It's gonna ruin the piece of the art class. I wonder if Dr. Apgar is a nod to the Apgar score.
Interesting. What is the Apgar score?
It's the baby score. So when a baby is born, they have a score from 1 to 10 as far as how healthy they are, how healthy they look, how well they're breathing, what color they are.
Huh. Is it like on a Likert scale, like 1 to 10 or something like that? So when you're born, I could be like an 8?
Right, yeah.
Weird.
You were never an 8.
Yeah, I feel more like a 5. Anyway, here's the interesting thing. If you were doing a painting class, would you want Data to come up and just start talking about your painting as if you weren't there, judging it?
It'd be tough, because, I mean, he's everybody on the ship's commanding officer except for Geordi, Riker, and Picard, so you really didn't have much to say about whether he wants to do that or not.
I don't know, I think it would be kind of cool because it would be like observing how somebody would look at your painting in a museum.
Right.
But while you're doing it, while you're making it?
Yeah.
I guess. I think it would be a novel at first, but then it would just get annoying after a while, because he would come up and just start doing that to everything. Says, I could see what you were attempting to do when you combed your hair this morning.
And if anybody's a painter of done painting, you'll notice that Picard was just using a ridiculous amount of paint for his painting. And if you look at if you looked at the they only showed kind of the side profile of the painting, but it actually looked like charcoal rather than what they were using. So.
Art fail.
You know, it kind of makes me wonder, in a world where you can have anything at your fingertips, I bet you artists would use way more paint than they actually need, because you just put your leftovers back in the replicator.
Huh. Okay.
Uh-oh. What's going on? We got a power drain in the... Oh my gosh.
Explosion!
Wow, so there's a power drain on the transporter room, and the next thing we know, the station just exploded. Anybody else got a little bit of whiplash on getting into the plot? And there we go. They brought Riker back.
He's aboard. Why do you sound so surprised, Mr. O'Brien?
Oh, we weren't sure if you were going to make it back.
Look how just nonchalant he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, space station exploded, so, listen, Keiko's waiting, so I gotta go.
Yeah, big fans of the online comic strip Chief O'Brien at Work, if you have not read it.
Yeah.
It is a treat.
All right, so this is A Matter of Perspective, the 14th episode in the 3rd season. This was directed by Cliff Boyle, written by Ed Zuckerman. Ron Jones is our musical genius.
Good dude.
Yep. And
Soon to be referred to as Zuckerman's famous pig of the episode.
And this came out February 12th, 1990. So it was the veil of winter is almost off our shoulders. Someday we will get to the spring.
It's been quite a while since we were together recording. It doesn't seem like any time for you, but we've been away from Star Trek for a little while.
We took probably about a month and a half off.
Yeah.
It's almost mid-January right now of recording this, so this is probably the freshest episode we've had in a while.
Yep.
First episode of 2020?
Yeah. First of 2020.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Woohoo!
Did you say Happy New Year or Crappy New Year?
Both.
It's gonna
First one than the other?
It's gonna be the Year of the Rat coming up.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. This episode is a whodunit episode, like who murdered the person. And I think we've only had 3, maybe 4 other episodes in Next Gen along that line. So you had the Ferengi scientist who was murdered that Crusher had to figure out. Remember that one? Mm-hmm. We had the suicide murder that Troy and Riker had to figure out. That was a late season episode.
Yeah.
So now they have to figure out what happened with Dr. Apgar.
We remain in orbit, investigating the accident.
There's O'Brien being bored at his job.
I mean, he doesn't do much. He just stands there.
Didn't he have an extensive indie film career?
Oh yeah.
Cole Meany.
He's been in a lot of stuff. He was on Dick Tracy, too.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
He's a cop who ran up and said, "How are you, Tracy?" That's it.
We may cover that in our commentary this year because it was a 1990 movie.
Oh yeah, and it was so comic book too. All the bright colors. That he's wearing a yellow outfit, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm. It may end up like Batman though, where I'll watch it and be like, "Yeah, I have nothing to say about this at all."
Chief Investigator Cragg of the Tanigan Security.
You know, Riker's looking a little older there. He's got the jowls going on.
Yeah. So the chief investigator from the planet has just come on to do his investigation. And Picard's like, "Okay, you got a couple of minutes to come clean about what's up." And as you can see, Riker is very tense and nervous about this whole thing.
He looks like he's about to fall asleep.
Yeah.
Well, he's got 3 buttons he's allowed to press.
Yeah.
Another fascinating alien with head ridges.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you can see at a very serious Picard puts his butt on the console conversation.
Oh, that's very rare for him. Wow.
Commander Riker, I am here to take you into custody.
Whoa, he's getting arrested.
Suspicion of murder.
He's got some Count Olaf thing going on.
Yeah.
No,
All he did was survive an explosion, and now
but he
he's...
gets just irrationally pissed at this guy. And you're gonna see like Wesley's down there, Data and stuff, and unless he's fronting that if somebody accused Wesley of a crime, Riker would have his back if he just popped off the second that the guy said that. He's not doing a very good job of, showing his command presence.
Yeah.
That was a very long pause that Picard had between number one and you have the bridge. Was that supposed to be some sort of secret?
He was trying to decide whether to relieve him or not. He decided not to show confidence in his officer.
Oh, okay.
Something he learned at the Disney Channel.
Two witnesses have come forward to describe Commander Riker's threats against Dr. Apgar.
So where's this information coming from?
The wife of Dr. Apgar and Dr. Apgar's assistant are the two witnesses.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Chance to prove his innocence. Investigator in our system.
So now we're basically exploring the criminal justice system of Starfleet versus
which
the
is-
local...
As
The local
Matt was
folks.
explaining, we watched this again last night. Very different from the United States Navy because the captain, they don't have a JAG officer here. The captain of the ship just makes the determination whether or not it's important. And our investigator points out, like, you could just leave at any minute.
Yeah, and then in the U.S. Navy, they wouldn't even consider releasing him under a foreign thing without authorization from way up the chain of command.
How can I expect a fair and impartial decision? The rights.
It's almost...
I could appreciate that.
I still think that we should have like a Starfleet JAG show. That would be really neat.
Man, it could happen.
It
There's
could happen. It would be
so much Star Trek
an
coming.
interesting to do as a Star Trek, one of the Star Trek shorts,
Mm-hmm.
where you would just have them like in the bowels of the Enterprise, and they just have stacks and stacks of complaints against Riker that he's just basically being buried under pads of every female officer in Starfleet complaining.
Yeah,
against
Riker
him.
would be out of a job if they had JAG on this ship.
Step by step, moment by moment.
Well, he's always so defensive in everything that he does.
He's an asshole to everybody too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I didn't really pick up on that as a kid watching these, and I have my little Funko Riker by my Star Trek books, and every time I'm like, man, he's not his. Maybe I don't want his energy in my house. Look at him peeping in the door as Data comes in. What are they saying?
Ew.
Yeah.
Watch his ears against the door on the
Yeah.
other side.
By the investigator, would it be possible to program the holodeck to recreate?
No, we're using the holodeck to recreate the science station.
Full orthographic representations.
How many times has Data saved the freaking day?
Well, this is just like the other time that. Well, I guess it was Geordi's fault that the holodeck went nuts, but holodeck's going to go nuts again this time.
Does it?
Yep.
Arrangements will be made to provide you with all available information. I shall return shortly with our witnesses. Lana, will you escort Investigator Cragg to Transporter Room 3?
Yeah, get him off my ship.
I don't think I'd want that name, Cragg.
I don't know. It's kind of like it's a strong name.
His jacket's cool, but he looks like he's wearing pajama pants.
Well,
I was gonna comment on his jacket too. I dig it.
that's the name that you would give like a Neanderthal buddy of yours.
Yeah.
What's up, Cragg?
Is Deanna wearing like the long skirt now?
Yeah, she is.
Oh, there
She's
you
in
go.
another new outfit. She does not look happy though.
No, I like that color.
Her makeup's not so good.
Is her makeup ever good?
No, and it's not at fault of the actress. It's the production team keeps on messing with her.
Totally.
Yeah, she's talked at length about the harassment over her physical image on the show.
From first contact through her appearances on Voyager, she looks really normal and
Yeah.
Yeah.
They could have run with that look. Actually.
I would say I would say even earlier than First Contact. As soon as they put her in a regular duty uniform and standardized her, she didn't look out of place. And they gave her more of a command presence. And actually showed that she had the ability to just go do more than go, I feel everybody's unhappy. To, I'm giving you an order because I'm in command now. Actually legitimized her as an officer.
What unfortunately it looks like she's doing in this is that she's sitting next to Riker, kind of to show that like he's capable of having a friendship with a woman, because what's going to happen here is a lot of his behavior toward Dr. Apgar's wife is going to be called into question.
So this guy, who's Craig, his name is Craig Richard Nelson. And he was in
different than Craig T. Nelson.
He was in Voyager, Murder, She Wrote, Alien Nation, L.A. Law. Was also in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Well, the dude playing Dr. Krieger is on Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. He's the villain in the Christopher Columbus movie that would come out 2 years later.
Oh, no kidding.
Yep.
So here we are on the holodeck. They are having, looks like, a roundtable discussion.
So all Riker needed to do here was to see how Apgar was progressing in his work.
So what they're doing is they're basically running Riker's interpretation of the events that would happen.
Yeah.
Is the simulation happening in the holodeck?
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then nowhere in any legal form would any of this be admissible.
Right?
I think this is almost like an extradition hearing, almost. Like, should we send Riker
It is
down
an
to the
extradition
planet?
hearing, but still, rules of evidentiary still apply. So it would be like me saying, I'm going to create a cartoon of what I think the murder looked like and how I didn't do it, and I'm going to present it as actual factual evidence.
Fine, whatever. I must say,
Like, what is it called now? The deep fake?
Well, this was so creating the program. That was essentially their deposition. It's there; they can't change it. So this is now their cross-examination. He's going to ask him, like, "Okay, you said this happened, and I'm watching it happen."
No, I get it. It's just one of those. In nowhere, with this kind of. I mean, this is just. It's not the only thing. I mean, this is like, well, we don't have security footage of what happened, so I'm going to make my own security footage and tell you what happened. It's just
pretty much.
Again, a deep fake.
So Gina Hecht is the name of this actress here, and she was in Mork and Mindy for several episodes. She was on that show for 3 years.
Wow.
Was in Seinfeld.
Everybody was on Seinfeld.
Yep. She was in Friends, Desperate Housewives.
Yeah, this was
Glee.
the year Seinfeld started.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
interesting.
1990.
Mm-hmm. She was in St. Elmo's Fire.
no, she's had quite the career.
Yeah.
She played George's psychiatrist in Seinfeld.
Oh yeah, is that what it is?
That was the one that his mother pays him to go to, and it was from the season where they're running the show for NBC. It's crazy that I know that. But.
So we're going through some very dull dialogue here, where
She's flirting with
Riker in front of her husband, and then she misdirects everything against him, saying, "Oh, well, he's so boring and he comes up short as a husband.
Yeah.
So you have to forgive his weakness."
Wait a moment. Stop.
And all he does is take a drink.
Yeah. Rolls his eyes.
Then it's your testimony that it was Mrs. Apgar's idea for you to spend the night aboard the space station.
It's my testimony and it's the truth.
Of course it is. No, it's my testimony and it's a lie.
Yeah, it's my testimony that every woman on every planet throws herself at me.
I'm going to write you 3 versions of what happened, and you get to choose which one you think is right.
Essentially, that's what they're doing here.
Yeah. And the color scheme of this room is very much room 237 in The Shining.
Oh, but I love it.
It's
I
super
love purple
purple.
and turquoise together.
And they lit it really well. They did a good job because you can't really see the purple on the actors. Same in the paneling behind them.
Awkward.
I'm left alone here.
Well, I'm sure they'll get into it, but I'm like, what is Deanna thinking about all of this right now?
Yeah, she's there. She's, she is unbiased.
Yeah, she's thinking another member to the club.
There,
get her a jacket.
You know that like she and Crusher are at poker games where Riker's like, so I went to the planet, and what do you know? Another female politician threw herself at me, and they're like, uh-huh.
Wow, that was a good stage punch there.
Yeah.
Look at that.
You won't get away with this. I'll see to it. I swear I will, Riker.
This guy's got no emotion in his voice. Very flat, very direct.
I didn't see Dr. Apgar until the following morning. He has to see me alone. Commander LaFord returned to the Enterprise. Resume program.
So we're back to out of the bedroom and into the lab.
Your report on my work won't be very good.
And now Apgar is angry at Riker.
But
It was a misunderstanding of the worst kind.
he's right though. It's like
If you would ask Mrs. Apgar to join
My
us.
wife and my assistant have transported.
if he made a formal complaint, Riker would just brush it off as being a jealous husband.
Well, and not only that, just because the fact that they had this incident, Riker should be recused. Be like, well, you know what? Okay, we got to send somebody else now.
Right.
They have no idea what.
No,
Because
agreed.
you could never prove 100% that it wasn't Riker being a dick
Mm-hmm.
for what happened.
So Pat, let me ask you something. Why does Star Trek have
Tell my
a
captain
theme
to expect your
of genius scientists with an estranged wife in the middle of nowhere?
I gotta drop the Roddenberry's vision
I'm ready
thing.
to leave now.
What's that?
He's Roddenberry's vision was all about free love and like hot women would be all over nerds because they have this intellectual prowess that guys like Riker don't have.
Oh, do you think Riker is the anti-male for Roddenberry?
A little bit.
Science station.
Interesting.
That's odd.
I can see that.
Very odd.
Well, when they originally wrote his character,
Is it not true that your sense of
Roddenberry, and this was in the original interviews they did with it, is that they said Picard was nothing like Kirk, and they wanted a Kirk-like character, a a flamboyant guy who's out there and very
Full of testosterone.
yeah, pounces onto the bridge and is the man of action and stuff like that. So they created the Riker persona for that to fill that void.
To kind of balance out the emotional
Yeah,
equation on the bridge.
they took Captain Picard, who's the stoic senior officer guy, the whole I'll analyze things, and then they wanted somebody who's shoot first, ask questions later.
Yeah, Kirk and Riker would not have gotten along though.
No.
No, they wouldn't, but it's the same type of thing. It's you needed an action guy. You needed a guy to
my recreation.
throw the punch and be in there, and then that's not Picard's style.
They could have climbed El Capitan together and had a good time doing that, but once it got into a professional situation between the two of them, it would not have.
Oh no, yeah, absolutely. I mean, he'd totally play poker with him and do that kind of thing. But then after that, it would be like, "Shut up, Riker. We're doing this."
So would you say that Riker is the anti-male for Roddenberry, and then Picard is kind of like his ideal?
No, not quite.
Okay.
I would look at a Geordi or a Spock as being the old, the kind of
Roddenberry's ideal?
yeah.
Okay. Do you agree with that?
I think that the Roddenberry vision definitely empowers smart people who can think on their feet and are not persuaded by the environment.
Mm-hmm.
So Geordi and Spock and Kirk would all fit in very well to that, but not Riker, because Riker gets manipulated by his environment all the time.
Yeah, I would say Picard is kind of up there because he's the whole idea of what Gene Roddenberry thought the evolved human would be. Is the whole, I have the command, I have the power to pretty much blow you out of the stars, but I'm not going to do it, and I'm going to explain to you why I'm not going to do it. But if it needs to be done, I have this guy sitting right next to me with his finger on the trigger.
That sounds really pretentious.
But it is. But that's the idea. Is the whole almost the arrogance of how arrogant humans become is because they're always saying, They're always referencing, well, we've eliminated poverty and hunger and crime on our planet, and we did it in 100 years. Why did it take you 300? And this is why we're superior. And human culture doesn't do that stuff anymore. Humans are pretty damn arrogant in the future.
Yep. So we kind of talked over the second version of the testimony where they accuse Riker of firing a phaser at this center of the set, more or less, that causes the explosion of the station. Couldn't they have just gone back and asked O'Brien, hey, pull up the transporter logs? Was he armed when he came back?
He was armed, but what they didn't do is they didn't do a ballistics test on his gun.
Did he have? I don't remember seeing a phaser when he transported.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah,
see
it would have been. You're right. It would have been Velcroed to him.
Yeah.
So the idea must have been he would have had to have tossed his phaser at the time, like fired it, thrown it, and then get beamed out. And even then, they would be able to inventory their ship to.
Yeah, that's what they said. They say he shot him. Like, well, where the hell did he get the phaser from? And not only that, they've shown in other episodes of Transport, they can always tell, hey, not only do we know there's a phaser in here, but we can disable phasers in the transporter so they don't work. I mean, a few episodes from now, they're gonna do that and say, hey, we detected a phaser in fire in transport. I've deactivated it so it doesn't work anymore. That only happens a few days from now.
So this is...
Maybe Craig didn't understand.
This is Apgar's testimony of how much she loves her husband.
Commander William Riker, Lieutenant Commander Jordy LaFord.
Oh, this is the worst version of Riker I think we ever see in the show.
Well, let's get on with it, shall we?
So she just wants to be the hostess to make sure her husband is successful and that they get the deal.
In his version, he called her Mrs. Apgar. In her version, he just calls her right away by her first name.
You assist your husband?
Oh, he also gives her elevator eyes, too.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, he's looking down, not up.
Yep.
Look up, dude. Just raise your head a little
I've
bit
never
more.
heard the word, like, you used elevator eyes too, and I'd never heard that term until Sasha said it, like, years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm like, what's elevator eyes?
Well, the 19th century would be, I gave you dumbwaiter eyes. This guy needs a bow tie, Dr. Apgar.
Huh.
It's just something's really missing right there.
I think it's the collar. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I like the assistant's tube uniform there. Well, I mean, those are just little
A
ripples.
man wears a necktie to draw attention to his groin. Why would you ever trust somebody who wears a tie that draws attention to their ears?
Maybe he wants you to listen to him.
Yeah, that's a David Mamet line about people who wear bow ties, because that's what a bow tie draws attention to is your ears.
That's funny.
To success.
So they're having some kind of celebration drink.
Yes, to success.
It's good that you're early.
So apparently this guy's developing a piece of technology for the Federation that transfers energy somehow from a planet to the space station remotely, and it converts the energy into something.
Yeah, it's energy in the form of Wi-Fi.
Okay. So Tesla played with that.
Yeah.
And we've done that in 3 other episodes of this, too.
Yeah.
They're always looking to do this.
So, the B plot, which is really part of the A plot, there's no B plot in this episode, but just randomly a hole showed up in the side of one of the bulkheads, and you see the scene of Wesley and Geordi just kind of looking at it like, I'll be damned, there's a hole in this. What could punch a hole through solid duranium? I don't know. And then they walk away.
Yeah. There's a hole in our spaceship. Let's see what's going on in the replicator.
My dad used to joke, like, this stuff must happen all the time to them, because nothing phases
I was going to say, I love how nonchalant they are about explosions.
So Riker just locked her into the room.
And he's getting hands on.
Oh.
She's giving the please don't touch me body language.
Ew.
Stop. The actress, I think, is very uncomfortable with this. I mean, just looking at her body language.
Ew. Stop.
Your sanctuary.
Ew. Stop.
She's lying. That never happened. Reprogram.
Oh.
No, I would never act like that. Commander Riker.
Yeah,
I don't think you-
I don't. He's like, I don't know that you would never act like that. It's kind of the
Because you're
problem.
kind of acting like that right now.
Yeah.
It's just...
I don't think this episode could be shot and aired like this today. Because it's a guy trying to defend himself from not only murder, but it's sexual
Well, no, it
harassment.
would be if
Yeah.
you did it on a Star Trek: The Next Generation special victims unit. episode.
And even, I mean, like Picard's like, crap. I was hoping it wouldn't go this way. And Deanna's like, yeah. She's like, I've personally been in situations with you where I've felt like this woman.
It's interesting, the little visual effects when he walks behind his
Yeah.
hologram, that
Yeah.
blur.
Yeah, because they have to layer the video, and
Yeah,
it's
they
not
have to
always really
distinguish themselves. Oh, okay.
because that's obviously him walking across a blue screen behind the cut image of himself. So Riker makes the threat because the doctor intervened with his wife being sexually harassed. This is a really ugly episode.
Yeah.
And again, if that had been a verbal testimony, it would have been bad, but it in no way would have been as jarring.
Right.
So see it. That's why this is kind of tainted testimony. If I were just reading this to you or explaining it to you, you'd be like, "Oh, that's fucked up." But the fact that you're physically watching him,
And it's like Deanna is like,
it just
you know, you don't need to glare at her. She's like, I just watched you like glare at this poor woman who's talking about how you assaulted her as she walked out of the room, scream and call her a liar.
She was lying. You could.
Well, I didn't sense any deception.
And here's the real crime
Then you think that
of this episode.
Of course not.
So Deanna, I think, suspects something kind of funny did happen between those two,
It is.
but this is a trial about a murder, not attempted rape.
Very true.
And they completely dismiss the sexual harassment side
Yeah.
of this.
Conduct
Because-
non-becoming to an officer. Yeah.
That's right. They excuse that he's completely off the hook because they proved he didn't blow up the station.
Yeah. Whether or not he might have locked this woman in a room and physically assaulted her is not important, apparently.
There's our mystery hole. Now it's in sickbay.
when you don't rust proof, that's what happens.
Next time, Captain, I recommend we use Rust-Oleum.
Yeah.
highly focused, very powerful.
So did we say what it is that's making these holes in the ship?
We haven't, but
Okay.
it's gonna piece together here real very neatly.
It's because they recreated the lab so well on the holodeck. It's actually doing what the lab is supposed to do. Similar to how when Geordi created Moriarty, he was able to control the ship from the holodeck.
Well, the lab in the holodeck, I think their explanation is that it's literally a mirror that redirects energy to other places. So now that they, as you said, they recreated it, and it's pushing that energy around the ship, burning holes in it, right?
Yes.
Or the Star Trek example would be, it's like we put a gigantic magnifying glass inside a ship of a bottle, and when the sun shines on it, the ship burns itself down.
If there was a novel or an extended story in this, it would have been. I would have put a scene where, Picard and Beverly are having their tea, and look how she's looking at him too. Picard and Beverly are having their morning tea together, and he's like, "Have you ever felt uncomfortable being alone in a room with Riker?" And she's like, "You know that you're not going to like the answer that I have to that question, Captain."
The response to the female crew here in this episode, I think, is very telling of Riker's character.
Exactly.
So, with Beverly looking down with that one-to-one look, and Deanna just kind of staring at him with that, I know what's happening, and it's happening again look.
Yeah.
Like, it was almost like disappointment from a family member.
Yep.
God, I love that outfit. What are those little ripples called?
Ruching.
Ruching. Okay, thank you.
So they just pointed out that, Picard says, she wasn't a witness. Why the hell is she talking? And then the other guy's like, well, the guy's dead, so we can pretty much ask anybody anything and it's admissible under our law. And what they have to get is this is an extradition hearing, so it's not based off of their laws. It's Picard just basically gets to make his own rules. So he can say, well, I don't give a rat's ass about your law. They have no relevant testimony.
Yeah, Riker gets his butt kicked. This is obviously the real version. So, whose version is this?
This is the assistant's version.
Who saw absolutely nothing and was not even on the station.
So why would she even write that?
He told her that that's what he found.
Okay.
He walked in there, Riker and his wife were making out. He clocked Riker.
But they still use the same key phrases in all three.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're building a case.
They're looking for continuity.
Yeah, they're building a case. You know,
So
any lawyer would say, okay, these are the 3 key words that every witness has to put into their testimony.
It'll be all right.
What's William Riker's the actor's name? Jonathan Frakes. Right?
Yeah.
What does he think about playing a womanizing character as such a dirt character?
I'm sure he loved it. It gave him a career. Boy, I don't know.
I don't know. It was a character. I mean, so for all Riker being an ass, he does have redeemable character. I mean, he is a decent starship commander.
He's a multifaceted person.
Yeah.
I think it's no different than any other person who would play a villain or a character with questionable parts. For the same reason why I did not like the guy who played Snape. Until I realized he was the hero in the end.
Alan Rickman.
Alan Rickman. Hello, my name is Alan Rickman. Anyway, and that's good acting.
Okay.
We both know Will's innocent.
Of course he's innocent.
Oh, that's bias, and he's sitting on the committee to approve.
But he just prefaced it with, but he's not allowed to do that,
Yeah.
and that's his whole. That's why I said Picard's the whole evolved. It's like, well, he's my best friend, and I know he's innocent, but my duty says I have to hand him over.
Aren't there some rules where panelists in the hearing can't talk to each other about the trial after off hours? Of the trial?
Captain Picard made his own rules for this.
Yeah, and that would be a jury.
Yeah.
Deciding this thing. This is a.
It's hard for me to remember when he's saying, he wouldn't do that. I know he's innocent. And he's talking about the murder and not the attempted rape.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to remember that's what they're talking
But
about.
but again, that's one of those. We didn't charge him with rape.
Yeah.
We charged him with murder.
Yeah.
The assumption. So they're going into the context of the murder. So the people, the prosecutors, I guess you could say, are saying he murdered him because of this weird love triangle. And the defense didn't have a case until now. They're all huddled around the science station. They say, no, it was science that killed the doctor.
But that's the thing is you get into it. Yeah, is you look into it. I would be like, all right, so I'll concede that Riker may have grabbed your wife and done that stuff, but you've shown me nothing that proves he murdered it. You've shown motive, but you haven't shown means. And you haven't shown that there's no physical evidence that he did it. It's not like, yeah, it's not like you have a body because the station exploded that has, Riker's DNA caught in his foot, from him. I mean, there's no physical evidence, It's not like an old-fashioned gun where you can say, oh, there's phaser residue on Riker's hand from when he shot him. So I'll be like, all right, so maybe Riker blew up the station. Maybe he sexually assaulted his wife, but he didn't kill him, and you're not charging him with these other things.
Uh-oh. So Picard is presuming he has the real answer. You didn't see what really happened. Play my version. So in Picard's version, everyone is in the quarters drinking tea, reading Shakespeare.
Whatever, Starfleet will get its Krieger wave converter. These things take
A Krieger wave.
That's all. Great.
I didn't know Archer was a part of this.
You seem to suggest that your husband had failed to create Krieger waves.
Yes, but he was very close to a breakthrough.
He said he needed more time. He was upset by our early arrival. But in fact, I maintain that he had already made that breakthrough.
So Picard is about to walk us through what we've been talking about for the last few minutes.
On what basis?
For the last several hours, the Enterprise has been experiencing unusual radiation bursts.
I still wish they could have taken the time. If they spend so much time talking about the science, They should have flushed out the whole sexual harassment side.
What good would it do? Would it change Riker as a person?
I think it would, because his social behavior is kind of sketchy at best. And right now it's just painting the victim, the wife, as, I'm just pissed that my husband's dead and I'm going to blame it on this guy.
Would he have? Do you think that he's capable of the empathy of understanding like what it would be like to be like locked in a room by like a sexually aggressive person that's like larger than him for purposes of, and who's also, part of an organization that you can't really fight?
Well, we could make it. They got the holodeck. I mean, they could make a 50-foot tall Amazon woman that crushes his bones and lock him in there.
Or like a Klingon man.
1438.
This is Picard's version of the conversation. Oh no, he's stitching together the testimonies of all the different ones to come up with the middle, the real supposition.
1610.
It's like they're video editing.
Yeah.
Your success, Doctor.
And the rewards that come.
Freeze.
You could do this entire episode on stage play. When you think about it.
Yeah.
Because there's
It would be an
only
incredibly boring stage play one, though.
there are only 3 sets.
Yeah, but still, it would just be one of those.
Well, this is an incredibly boring episode, so it works. I mean, if they can do the entire Star Wars film on a 50-foot by 50-foot stage in live action, you could do this.
But that was an interesting story. This is not. Is what I'm getting at. It's not saying that you couldn't. It would just be one of those. Why would you?
Apgar said that in each of the 3 versions. No doubt he was afraid Commander Riker might learn the truth. Cut off his support prematurely.
If you did one, I'd do one of the holodeck ones where they're in the Dixon Hill universe. That would be an interesting stage one.
Commander Riker with his wife. Health matters. I submit he decided to murder Commander Riker.
Ridiculous.
His assistant's like, yeah, that's kind of the guy he was.
Passive aggressive scientist. He lost a fist fight, so he decided to blow him up.
Well, no, he wanted to blow him up because Riker. He thought Riker was going to expose him for creating a weapon.
Yeah.
For weaponizing his research.
So
which is a good motive to kill somebody.
True. Didn't they say something about selling it to the Romulans?
Yeah, it was one of those. If he basically turned his generator into a weapon and was going to sell it to a hostile species, yeah, you take a chance to try to kill Commander Riker because you've got nothing to lose at this point.
So there's been some discussion that Riker actually would have had some diplomatic immunity to this situation. There's a book called Star Trek Visions where they talk about the legal aspects of the Federation, if you want to read that.
You have to, but only going off of based on what we've seen in the series, not what's been written about it.
True. But what
He's a military officer. Military officers are not granted diplomatic immunity. Now, granted, they usually fall under something which is called status of forces agreements. And so, depending on what country you're in, our officers and our military personnel are either A, subject to their law, or B, subject to the uniform military code. So, in certain countries, yes, they can arrest a military officer when he's on shore leave. In other countries, they're not allowed to. They have to inform the provost marshal or the shipboard security and say, we want to formally charge this guy. And then the ship's, either the NCIS or the JAG officer investigates and determines whether or not the charges will be filed. And so it all depends. Like in Japan, status of forces agreement does not allow them to take our officers into custody. But I believe in places like Italy and in Germany, they can be taken into custody by local authorities.
Oh, yeah. And in fact, we were in Germany last month, and I was talking to a friend of ours who will sometimes help soldiers who got into car accidents and they have to pull over and translate when the police show up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're still very...
So I would say a planet like Vulcan would be like, yeah, we could take them into custody because we're a member of the Federation and stuff like that. But on a powerful one too, a founding member. But Random World whatever would be one of those yeah, you can file a complaint and we'll dispatch somebody. But Riker as a uniformed officer would not have diplomatic immunity because he's not a stated member of the diplomatic corps. Like Sarek would have immunity.
Yeah.
Because he's an ambassador. A listed ambassador.
Well, he is there on the behalf of the Federation negotiating a
Still,
contract.
we send military officers to other countries all the time for diplomatic reasons. They're not diplomatic.
There it is. There's what really happened. Science killed the Doctor. Or technically the Doctor killed
I was going to say, you
himself.
could say they were blinded by science.
Blinded by science! There we are on this really beautiful holodeck. I absolutely love the simplicity of this room. If you've ever watched Community, they replicated this in one of the rooms called, what is it called? The
The
Imaginarium?
Dreamatorium.
Yeah.
I like this design better than the modern one they did for Voyager and stuff.
I agree.
Based on this new evidence, I withdraw my request for Commander Riker's extradition.
Would like to file charges of sexual assaults, and other things which we clearly saw evidence of. And
well, they could have even cleared that up with it's like, however, you understand that the statute of limitations is this long, and if she does decide that she wants to file charges, you have to come back.
Exactly. And that's the thing. I mean, and that's usually why when they go to court for things is they file a charge on everything. They will file charges for jaywalking if they can do it. Just on the off chance that other charges don't stick, they can still hold you for other things while they re-examine evidence and do things. So the guy could be like, all right, well, we can't prove he murdered him, but he still sexually assaulted her, so we want him held on that. We want him held on assault, and we want him held on, anything other thing, stuff like that. And so basically Picard would have to be at this point, well, all right, you can't get him for murder, but you have him for this. And then, yeah, it's just one of those, you whittle it down to, you run out of things you can't charge him for.
So, yeah.
This episode...
Matter of perspective.
Yeah, so I have so much to say. When I was a child, I did not take the sexual harassment part into consideration. I just kind of saw it for face value. Oh, she must be lying because she wants to get Riker in trouble. That was kind of the perspective I remember when I was a little kid watching this. And that it was a very cut and dry murder episode, but science saves the day. I also remember hating watching it because it was like listening to that song 12 Days of Christmas where you're just watching the same thing over and over and over again, but it changes a little bit. And then it's finally over.
It's finally over.
I actually really like that style of, like, the
Groundhog Day style.
Groundhog Rashomon.
Yeah. Well, Groundhog Day was nice because at least they introduced new themes and concepts as it matured. This was just rinse and repeat. And then just the fabric was fading each time we watched it. But now, watching it as an adult, this is probably the first time in about 3 years I've seen this episode. And especially what's going on with the modern day movements and just making sure that there's justice for all. They completely dismissed the sexual harassment side of this. And it's very disappointing. I think it's reflective of 1980s social concepts. And the look of relief that everybody had that Riker was not guilty at the end was really disturbing because the relief was like, oh, we can get back to normal. We can just completely ignore that any of that happened. But you look at the facial expressions from Deanna and Beverly, and those could be misinterpreted as he finally got caught. It's too bad. We like him, but looks like he...
Both actresses have probably had to go through experiences like that where they couldn't speak up because they'd get screamed at like Riker screamed at the woman, calling her a liar, like in the middle of her testimony.
Yeah.
And he wasn't cautioned for that. Nobody said to him, "Hey, you can't yell at her and call her a liar," while she's describing an absolutely harrowing situation where she got locked in a room and grabbed.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't help anything for you to escalate this.
It's a deflective statement.
Yeah.
That doesn't. So you're blaming me. So I'm just gonna turn around and put it back on you. And I hope that my anger and my voice can bully you.
And with having gone through, Harvey Weinstein and Brett Kavanaugh in the years since this,
it's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's kind of awful to see somebody that you look at as a hero.
Bill Cosby.
Yeah, Bill Cosby be put in a situation like that.
Well, the more I watch this show, the less respect I have for that character.
Me too.
I don't have disrespect for I don't have disrespect for Jonathan Frakes, kind of like what Jem was saying, because his job was to play a part.
Yep.
And that's it. And the fact that we dislike this character is actually probably a kudos to his acting.
Agreed.
But for scoring this episode, I'm gonna have to give this 1 out of 5 invisible bow ties.
I'll go last. Jem, you wanna go next?
Sure. First off, just randomly, I like it when I learn new words, and I saw a new word in this episode, which was collimate. COLLIMATE, and it means of rays of light or particles made accurately parallel.
That's cool.
Yeah, so.
Oh, in what context? Was that during the scientific explanation towards the end?
Yeah.
Okay, I missed that.
Not towards the end. It was in the middle somewhere. They were talking about something collimating. I think it was like when they're reviewing, or I don't know. It made sense. So cool, new word. But I would probably also give it a 1 out of 5 invisible bow ties, if possible, maybe even a 0 out of 5 invisible bow ties, because it was uncomfortable to watch. 2, I didn't really see the value in it as far as the series in general. I don't think that it contributed to any sort of narrative.
It didn't add to the body.
No, It was very much a throwaway episode.
Yeah, in a world where we can get rid of certain Simpsons episodes like Stark Raving Dad, this is an episode of Next Generation that could be gotten rid of.
Yeah,
it doesn't need to be included on streaming services or.
So yeah, I found no value in it. Like, I found there was no redeeming quality in anybody. Nobody had like a very particularly interesting role or development, and I don't think that it really helped contribute to the Star Trek world. Like, we didn't learn more about any race I saw.
We just saw Picard doing his job.
And
That's
I didn't
what it was.
learn any more about, any of the operations of the ship.
Mm-hmm.
I disagree, and I'm going to give it 2, maybe 2.5, because we did learn some stuff about the crew.
Like what?
By the reactions of Deanna Troi and Crusher, the way they reacted to her things, you can clearly see that this isn't just Riker being a dick. It's like, well, all right. Basically, when they're looking at Picard, and even some of Picard reaction is like, oh crap, what did he do now?
That's true.
It's not an outrage. You're like, wait a minute. Riker doesn't grab women. Where were you? What are you doing? Is this one of those? Their reaction is, shit.
Imagine
they got it on video, kind of thing.
Yeah,
we could. This whole episode could have been fixed by having it have been Geordi that was accused of that, and
or
Riker.
Data. Yeah, it's like there's no way these guys.
That would have made an interesting one, if you accused Data of something like that.
Have Riker acting being really defensive about their behavior. It's like, no, she's got to be lying. There's no way, Commander LaForge or Commander Data would do something like that.
And
that's
it goes
my job.
Yeah, pretty much. The understated idea behind that is like, I know because I'm the guy on the ship that does crap like this.
And it feeds into the chauvinistic narrative of angry woman makes a sexual harassment against a guy to bring him down.
Even that, I'm not. I bring lesser into that. I mean, It's possible that, I mean, like I said, it's actually believable that he may not have grabbed her, but he made her feel so uncomfortable that she interpreted it that way. And then that's what she could firmly believe that's basically what happened.
Right.
And that's why doing that whole, let's do a holodeck recreation is just a really tainting way. If this had been an actual jury trial, I mean, what the hell? Could you imagine seeing that? I mean...
We're 5 years away from that horrible Michael Douglas Demi Moore movie, Disclosure.
But, you know, and now, so they've done...
Sexual harassment is about power. When did I ever have the power?
I'm so glad I don't know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
I'm going to glaze over that. They do different... They've done trial episodes in Star Trek before, and they'll do other ones that are better done with this. And they even explain why in some of these, why they don't have a JAG present, even though they should have one. And this would have been a perfect episode to have somebody do that in there. You know, now, we also talked about was, you know, a panelist and stuff. There was no panel there. This was all for Picard's...
amusement.
Not even amusement. His thing is, Deanna Troi was there, but she doesn't have a vote. And the prosecutor was there, but he doesn't have a vote. It was all Picard's decision and sole decision whether or not to turn Riker over, because it's an extradition hearing. And so everybody in the room could say, oh yeah, we think he's innocent, and it's up to Picard to make the decision. They don't say, everybody raise your hand and think he's innocent. It's Picard can say, well, I don't care what you put up there, I'm not handing him over.
Yeah. That's what the big one that we glossed over, and the thing that must have been so frustrating for Troy, is Riker's version of that is that the woman came on to him. That she was completely responsible for everything that happened.
Yeah, and the reason you had Deanna there, though, is because she's an empath and she can tell if the other people are lying. And they showcase that when they talk about it, and she says the wife didn't have any signs of deception when she gave her testimony. That is the big key there, is it wasn't when they say, well, she's just making this up because, you know, she wants to get revenge, so she's claiming it. Deanna Troi didn't sense she was lying.
So it was,
and that was
her.
that was the big damning thing with Riker, is when they're like, well, Riker says he didn't do it. It's like, yeah, but the other woman isn't lying about being sexually assaulted or feeling like she was sexually assaulted. So there was a big, I would say, character growth. This is like the first time other people are admitting almost that Riker is inappropriate. Or has been inappropriate in the past. It's not just something we as the audience are perceiving, or because of the way it was written. It's actually showing that is part of his character. It is like that. Wow. And it was Deanna Troi, who has strong feelings for him, is basically willing to admit it. And Dr. Crusher, who's fairly impartial. She's got nothing vested in it. And she's a high enough ranking officer that even still, she shouldn't be intimidated by Riker, because she's of equal rank to Riker, and as a chief medical officer, she basically has power over him, because she could relieve him of duty at any time. So it's not like you have the junior officers to be afraid. And she's close friends with the captain, too, so she's got a lot of pull. And even she's one of those, no, I've kind of seen this, or I've had women come to me and complain about this. So I think there was enough in this to give it at least, I'm going back on it, I'll say 2.5.
Yeah, the I was playing racquetball with Commander Riker, and that's why I have bruises all over my body.
Oh. Exactly, kind of thing. Or what we do? We were doing martial arts, and that's why I have burns on my knees and stuff.
So it's a Worf and Dax excuse.
Yeah,
essentially.
But
yes.
Worf and Dax was consensual.
It's Worf because both of them admit what they were doing.
Yeah, they would break ribs while making love.
And but they would both be like, yeah, that's what we were doing. This one it wasn't Dax saying, oh, no, I tripped and fell, and then, Worf tried to help me up and fell on top of me. And then we both broke our ribs.
Well, we got on a tangent there.
So I don't have a lot more to say about the episode. Yeah, because I'll stick it in the 2 category, because I feel like Gates McFadden and Marina Sirtis are doing their all to communicate without speaking what they think about what's up in this episode. And that's a good thing. We'll talk about this more when Ensign Rowe joins the crew of the Enterprise. But with that...
Oh, she's a Spitfire, and she'll tell you exactly
Yeah.
where things are.
She's a battle star.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
The
So,
Electrica.
with that being said, thank you for tuning in, and have a wonderful day.